Welcome to the main zone. I am Jermaine. Thank you for tuning in my podcast. Wherever you are, however you're listening, I appreciate it. YouTube, man, thank you for watching. Like my last podcast, I have had the most comments and views that I've had in any of them that I've done so far. So I appreciate that. But then continue listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however you listen to your podcast as we continue to grow this platform. Just telling everybody I appreciate it. Let's dive in. Today I'm going to my big topic will be the Lakers. Before that, we're going to talk some college sports, particularly basketball, and then we will dive into the Laker dilemma, so to speak. But let's begin. First, big ups to Coach K. This past Saturday night, he had his last home game against the Everett Cameron Indoor Stadium. So, the Blue Devils took on the Tar Heels. Tar Heels came out on top, which, makes me happy. I've always been a big North Carolina fan. But it was awesome to see all the players show up for Coach K. I mean, we can give you all the stats. The 42 years at Duke, the 5 national titles. He's got 10 ex-players that went on to become D1 head coaches, 68 players drafted in the NBA, 4 Final Fours, most wins in men's college basketball history. But that didn't say anything of who he was, who he is, and which I find more phenomenal than anything else. The lives that he touched of those young men, all over 200 players that he's had, and how they speak of him and the reverence they have for him and the love that you could see when you're watching, when he was getting his curtain call. You just saw Grant Hill and Jay Williams and Trajan Langdon, Christian Laettner, all these guys, they look at him in awe. And then I was listening to JJ Redick's podcast, The Old Man and the Three. And he said, besides his father, Coach K is the most respected man that he knows. So it just tells you the man that Coach K was. That is, I keep saying was. It's just that he's leaving Duke. But great teacher of the game. Has guided even the men's national team to 3 Olympic medals after we fell off the map. Not the map for real, but, we started losing. So great, 42 years at Duke. He got to Duke in 1980. I used to, not like Coach K because I felt he wanted to recruit a certain type of kids. But then as I've gotten older and wiser, I just respected him so much as a coach and as a man. And hopefully one day, some of the young people that I spend so much time with will look at me in the same manner that Grant Hill looked at Coach K. So, awesome job, Coach K. Great career so far. The season's not over with. Duke will be in the tournament, so we'll see how they do. But it was awesome. The atmosphere was truly awesome for his final home game. And then North Carolina spoiled it. And then what made him show his competitiveness was that before the entire ceremony began, he went out and apologized to the way that his team played. And I could, you could see why. The atmosphere, the lack of focus maybe by the players. But just for him to go out there and apologize to the crowd for their lackluster effort just speaks of the human and the coach that he is. But moving on, again, big ups, Coach K. Probably would go down as the greatest college coach in basketball of all time. Now, the NFL had their combine this past, 5 days. Guys are running faster than ever, which is phenomenal. And again, you have, athletes, let's say your average NBA player. Then you have freak athletes like LeBron, Zach LaVine, Calvin Johnson. Who else? Randy Moss, and then you have your like super freaks. That is Jordan Davis. For those that don't know, he's a D lineman from the national champion Georgia Bulldogs. This kid is 6'6", 341 pounds, and runs a 4.78 40, and has a 32-inch vert. People watching, people listening, that's ridiculous. I mean, for a guy that size, I think his broad jump was 10.3. For a guy that size to be that athletic is mind-blowing. I mean, what the heck? Man, like, just watching his combine was impressive. And then you see the viral, takes from The Rock did a post, and several others did a post about, his extraordinary talent. So much success to him. I think he's looking at a long, successful career in the NFL. But I could have went over, all the 4.2 times and the 4.3 times and all that. And NFL's over with, so I'm moving right along. But I had to point that out, man. Jordan Davis is a freak athlete, period. Speaking of college, though, Deion Sanders had an interesting take on collegiate athletics from the standpoint of the transfer portal. So as you know, guys can transfer like that now. It used to be where freshmen didn't play a lot, and now they're playing the whole game. So you're in a dilemma where with so many guys transferring out, coaches are now just recruiting transfers as opposed to recruiting high school players. I can see, both sides of the coin, but what Deion said made a lot of sense, which is something needs to be done because D1 coaches are no longer recruiting high school kids. Because why go get an 18-year-old when I can get a 21 or 22-year-old? Why go get somebody that have to build up in the weight room, from the scheme standpoint to the knowledge of the game? Why I can just go grab an older kid because I need to win now, because if I don't win, I get fired. So, interesting take on that. Just realistically, what do you do? What does NCAA do in this dilemma? If I'm a coach and I have an 18-year-old kid that I'm recruiting, but I go get the same kid, the same size, that's 20, I'm taking the 20-year-old because I need to win now. I don't have time to develop a kid. Unfortunately, that time is past where coaches spend all the time developing their players, because by the time studs get developed, they're in the league. You do development in the NBA. You don't do it in college. You do your 1 year and you're out. So, everybody wants to play. And my advice to anybody that's in high school, that's looking to go to college, is find you a D2, find you a small D1, ball out, and then transfer to a bigger school. Like, unless you're a McDonald's All-American or top 50 in your class, you're not going to go to Kentucky or something and play off the bat. You might go to mid-major, but those mid-majors now recruiting the big D1 guys that aren't playing. So you still might not play there. So I would say find a small D1, go rec shop, JUCO possibly, or a D2 and rec shop, and then transfer. That's how I look at that. Based on what Deion said, but the NCAA does need to come in and probably give some guidelines to teams on how they can recruit or offer more scholarships for high school players. So coaches actually will recruit them. But that's it for college. Real quick, let's dive into the NBA. Brooklyn's still there. I don't think anybody wants to play them in the playoffs. Once they get Ben Simmons back, they'll be very tough. Speaking of Simmons, this week, Thursday night, I believe, Philly takes on Brooklyn in Philadelphia. And the reports are that Simmons will travel to the game, but he won't play. Now, I don't understand that. I mean, I get it. You should travel with your team, but if you're healthy to play, man, go play. Don't shy away from the criticism that you're going to receive from the Philly faithful. Shut them up with your play. Stop being so weak and get out there and just shut them up. But if he's healthy enough to play, get out there and play. So if he play, let's say he doesn't play Thursday, but he plays Saturday night, I'm like, man, you just shied away from the Philly crowd. So if we have, the basketball, quote unquote, gods, give us something awesome, it will be a Philly versus Brooklyn playoff series. That'll be great. Happy birthday to Shaq. Shaq celebrated his 50th birthday a couple days ago. Probably the most dominant player to ever play in the NBA from a standpoint of referees not even know how to guard him. He won 4 titles. Number 1 pick in the draft in '92. MVP award. Had a 3-peat with the Lakers. Then got that 4th one with D Wade. Great player. Also a great guy off the court, as you see all the giving that Shaq's been doing his whole career. But now with social media, and with him even speaking about how he wants to give, that is phenomenal. I've seen videos of him in Best Buy, Walmart, just buying things for kids, which I find awesome. Hopefully one day I'm in that space to do for others in the manner that he's doing. I find it remarkable. And it's great to see that he's found his second act with his role with TNT and things like that. So happy birthday, Shaq, man. Keep doing great things. Keep leading by example. Now, main topic. Let's just dive in. It's threefold. Number 1, what do Lakers do now? Number 2, what happens if they make the playoffs? And then number 3, what does the off season look like? All right. So right now, LeBron was phenomenal this past Saturday night. Put up 56 against the Warriors, willed them to a win. I think he's going after the scoring title this year just to prove that he can score if he wanted to, and to prove that he still has it in year 19. The issue is the roster. On one side, Anthony Davis has proven now that he's not a guy that can stay healthy. This is not a player like, let me think, somebody that's been hurt. Giannis. Or even Dirk. If you remember, Dirk hurt his knee before. But let's use Giannis as the example. Giannis has some bumps and bruises, but 9 in, 9 out, he's playing. And he's not that guy. He's always banged up. He's always hurt. So I don't think LeBron went into this season thinking that he'd have to play so many minutes without AD. Then you have the Russell problem, Russell Westbrook. I hate to say it's a problem because he's a phenomenal basketball player, top 75 of all time, but he doesn't fit the Lakers. I think like the Lakers, LeBron, Pelinka, they try to go for a big name and not for a big fit within their team. For all the talent that Westbrook is, if you remember back when he was in Houston, they basically had to trade their starting center, Clint Capella, to the Hawks so they can let Russ roam the paint and then spread all the shooters out. So you know what you're getting when you get Russ. You're getting a hyper athletic, play 100 miles an hour, non-shooting point guard. Now, he's more of a hybrid guard who I think should lead your second unit. So, and I've read reports where the Lakers coaching staff is wanting to move him to a 6-man role. And I think that's for them to salvage any part of their season, they need to move Russ to the 6-man. Now, on one end, it's like, this is the best for the team. This is what's going to put us in a position to win. You can lead the second unit, run your pick and rolls. We get the floor spread for you, surround you with shooters and things like that. On the other end, that's from coaches and probably smart GMs. And on the other end, you got, I'm not saying he's not smart, he's a top 75 player of all time, but Isaiah Thomas today on Game Time on NBA TV was saying, how dare the Lakers even consider bringing Russ off the bench. He's a top 75 player of all time. He's a former MVP. He's a former scoring champ. He's a former assist champ. He's a 3-time getting triple-double for a season guy. Yes, I know. All that sounds good. But what is he doing right now? Like, right now, he's not. It's not that he's not putting up decent numbers, because with 18-7-7 is legit. It's that it doesn't mesh with the team. Like, if you want to win, you have to mesh. And I think in the 6-man role, he could thrive. That first unit with LeBron and AD, if he can get healthy, leading the way, surround them with defensive players and shooters, and then bring in Russ, let him run the second unit with more shooters, if the Lakers can find some, and go with there. Now, your closing lineup, you have to decide. Do you go AD, LeBron, Russell, Monk, and Carmelo? It's not a lot of defense out there if you do that. One thing about AD, speaking back to him, is LeBron has been playing center for the past, for a little bit this year. And AD's always been adamant to say he doesn't want to play center. It's like, is LeBron trying to tell him and show him that, hey, man, do whatever it takes to win? But right now, I think the best bet, again, threefold, what we're going to discuss. Right now, Lakers need to bring Westbrook off the bench. LeBron needs to have better body language. The Lakers as a whole don't look like they play very hard every night. And yes, they have a bad roster. Like, you got to be blind to not see that. But can they play harder? Yes. Like, the Clippers don't have the best roster in the NBA, but they play hard every game. And that's where I think the Lakers lack, and that falls on coaching and LeBron. He's your leader. Okay. Now, but if they make the playoffs, I think the Lakers are a team that nobody would want to face. Keep in mind, this is how the NBA is played every year. Beginning of the season is running and gunning. It's all offense. The regular season is just running and gunning. Not everybody's playing hard. The referees let you get away with whatever. Then when the playoffs start, the game gets more physical. The game slows down. The game becomes more about execution and can you get a bucket? Okay, said that. So I think anybody that gets the Lakers, I think teams would rather not play the Lakers in the playoffs, because as the games slow down, I think LeBron rises. He gets to dictate the pace. AD knows where to get the ball if he's healthy. I think the Lakers will be a tough out if they're healthy. And I don't think anybody wants to play them in a 7-game series, because you never know what'll happen. They've had all year to figure this team out. They haven't done it yet, but once those playoffs hit, it's a different game. Just the game becomes more slowed down, more methodical, more about the bucket, more about execution. So that's my second piece. If they make the playoffs, I don't think anybody wants to see them. And if they miss the playoffs, I mean, that'll be a ding on LeBron's legacy. It's a legacy that's I think is locked in in the second space in the history of the NBA. But it still be a ding on him, even though it's year 19, and I mean what he's doing is mind blowing. But you know how we are today's 24/7 sports. You got your Skips and your Nick Wrights, and that are the complete opposite. Like Nick Wright is LeBron's the best thing he's ever seen in his life. And then Skip is, you know, goes out of his way to, to say shortcomings that LeBron might have had in his career. So if they don't, it'd be trouble for him. But if they do, I don't think anybody wants to face him. Similar to Brooklyn, I don't think anybody would want to play Brooklyn in the playoffs, except for like Milwaukee. I think they're built with the confidence to play with anybody. But everybody else, I think, would fear Brooklyn. Now, off season, what do you do if you're the Lakers? What do you do? So you have LeBron, Tucker, and AD locked in. Russ can opt in. So if Russ opts in, that's $47 million. Now he does have an attractive expiring contract, but you got to get to next season. You got 4 players in the contract if Russ opts in. What do you do with the remaining probably 1 year or 2 max of dominant LeBron? Do you let this season convince you that AD is not the guy that can carry the Lakers after LeBron is gone? Because you got to remember, you need another guy that can fill that role once LeBron's gone. When you think about it, we're from Magic to a dry patch, to Shaq and Kobe, to Kobe, and then Kobe's years faded, and then you got LeBron. So who is the next, great Laker? It's not AD. I don't think he has a personality. I don't think he has great, his game is there. I mean, he's phenomenal talent. I just don't think I don't think he's a top flight 1 alpha dog hooper like Giannis is. I think Giannis can carry a franchise. I don't think AD can. So what do? You decide to trade AD this summer? I mean, can you? I mean, his agent's Rich Paul. I mean, can you really do that? And then once Russ opts in, I mean, you're kind of out of it. So the Lakers are in a serious dilemma with the last few years of LeBron's career, with which direction to go, because if Russ opts in, which I don't see why he won't, why would he not opt in to $47 million for 1 year? Then you got to see what you could do. I mean, you're going to rebuild or reload, basically what the Lakers have to consider. But again, we'll get to the offseason when the offseason gets here. It's a stretch drive, I should say, of the NBA season now. Each team has about 18 to 20 games to get right for the playoffs. So now everybody's trying to play harder. All the games are trying to matter a little bit more. So you're seeing the cream rise to the top. So this ending quarter of the season will be great, just to see if the Lakers can get in, and to see all the races, race to the MVP, race to home court, and all that. So I'll be on next week, or probably the week, discussing more NBA. But I had to give my take on the Lakers. Their bad body language, their inability to close out games, their really the lack of urgency that I see that they don't have. I mean, just tonight, LeBron, they played the Spurs here in San Antonio, and LeBron's on the sideline with his hoodie on and his shades on, eating popcorn. Granted, no big deal, but yet still a big deal. Like, come on, man. Like, to some people, it'll look like he's just trying to get his numbers, and if he can get that Kareem number, will everybody consider him the GOAT? So another end, it's like he's not showing great leadership this year, night in and night out. Not saying he's not a great leader. He is. It's just when you have bad body language, when you show up at a game, you sit in the crowd with your homeboy as opposed on the bench, those things don't look good to the rest of the team. But, NBA season is almost over with. I'm interested to see the playoffs. My picks look terrible from my podcast on the preview. So once the playoffs start, I get my playoff picks. But as always, oh no, before I go, prayers for the people of Ukraine. It's always sad when there's war in the world, and just prayers for those souls over there. As you know, it's hard to speak about from the standpoint of like, you know, seeing people die, innocent people die is never good. You know, especially this day and age when there's, you know, so much access to seeing it. So prayers to the people of Ukraine as they with you know, as they navigate through this time over there in that country. But as always, stay blessed. I'm out. Have a great week.